And it's funny because like I asked the women at work, and they're like, yeah, now they hate it, but you know, they're kind of blaming the kids that they don't want to go outside. I'm like, well, no, you don't want them to go outside.
You want them to go outside when you can helicopter them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dad, his parents, well, his mom left and went to England. His dad left and went to Canada. So he was raised by his grandparents. So he basically had no supervision. So my dad learned everything by trial and error and sink or swim. That's how he learned to swim. He learned to sink or swim. And I was just like, what? So yeah, so I guess that was his method with raising me. Where it was just like, look, yo. I was like, Dad, is that iron hot? Touch it and see.
Not a good idea.
He's just like, yo, touch it and see.
If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read it, you're misinformed. What is the long-term effect of too much information?
Information, I just need some information. I've been dying. Is it lack of education? I've been reading without any transformation. I'm addicted. Is it overstimulation? Hey.
Welcome to the Sixth Sense Report.
Hear ye, come one, come all. You are listening to the Sixth Sense Report with Joel Nikoloff and Darnell Samuels.
Yeah, buddy.
How you doing, Joel?
I'm good, man. Doing really good.
Good. Man, we got a unique episode on our hands, man.
Yeah, man, I'm excited.
I'm
Take
more
me
excited.
back to my childhood.
Yeah, no, I'm excited, and the audience is excited because you guys pushed play to listen. So today we're looking at gaming, eSports versus traditional sports, T-sports. So you'll hear me say T-sports or eSports.
T for traditional.
T for traditional, soccer, basketball, football, rugby,
hockey.
Yeah, hockey, and so forth. But just to be clear, Joel, tell the people about your background when it comes to gaming and gaming games of choice.
Oh, well, it goes back to like Nintendo as a kid. I mean, this is a good anecdotal. I can remember as a kid, my parents taking the Nintendo away, and then I found it in their closet. So I thought it was a good idea to wrap it up and put it under the Christmas tree and give it back to my parents. So I don't know how long it lasted before they took it away again, but I definitely got to play it on Christmas. But yeah, I mean, Nintendo, the original Super Mario Brothers 3, Blades of Steel, those are my joints.
Yeah.
But I think I wouldn't have called myself a gamer back then. But as I definitely got into Final Fantasy VII on PS1, and then I think for most of my teenage years, college or university, it was 2 games, Call of Duty and NHL. It was the only 2 games I always bought. How about you?
Well, yes, I started out with Nintendo, and then Super Nintendo, and then PlayStation, and PlayStation 2. And it's weird. My gaming story is kind of weird. So, I became a Christian in 2005, and I guess you could say I got saved from gaming. My whole just worldview mindset changed in the way how I just saw my time, and my desires changed. So instead of gaming, I picked up reading, which I didn't grow up reading, so now I read, or, play chess or whatever. But, I say all that to say that, I don't hate gaming, but I'm definitely not a gamer now. I'm definitely not a gamer now. So
what qualifies as a gamer?
And that's a good question. We should be clear, to define it, because there's nothing wrong with playing video games. I think it's just a matter of amount of time that you put in. So like esports is like professional players, right?
Yeah.
or
which
even,
might be a shock to some people listening.
Oh,
What do you
right.
mean? There's professional players?
yeah. So there's professional players,
Just
professional
keep
leagues.
listening. You'll figure it out. We'll get into it a bit. But.
Right. But I think we're looking at the average time that a person is online or playing video games is about 7 hours
A week.
a week. That's an hour a day.
I would say if you want to qualify as a gamer, you probably end up more than that.
Yes.
Someone that's 7 hours probably just casually playing.
Right. Because I'm thinking back in the day when I was playing, more like my games of choice would be like NBA Live and Fight Night. Fight Night was wonderful, and actually, but even back then they used to track the time you played. So easily I would put in 2 to 3 hours easy.
My longest was like in my prime of gaming. In 1 year of Call of Duty alone, I was playing NHL at the same time probably.
Mm-hmm.
I cracked over 24 hours played.
And
24 days played.
Oh, really?
In a year. So, yeah, gaming, you're right. 3-hour gaming session, probably multiple times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday,
especially if you're playing like a season or you got like
Well, I mean, in that era, I had like 12 buddies that we'd jump online. I mean, when I say buddies, I don't mean they were from here. We just created a group of guys over online, and every time you jump on, you'd be able to play Call of Duty with a group of 6 people. Join a party. My brother played too, so we had 2 people in the same house. It was easy to be like, "Hey, you want on? Okay, cool, let's go." So, that, I mean, I don't even want to think about what the average was. If I did 24 days played in 8 months, I'm not even going to try and do the math because I don't want to know the number.
Right.
But, you're doing sometimes a 4-hour session.
Yeah.
Come over from school. Oh, I just finished an exam. I got nothing going on. Bam.
Right.
Or summer.
Or you're multitasking where you're talking to your girl. And
game's on mute.
Yeah. You're not listening to me.
What are you talking about?
What did I just say? Oh, yeah.
You stumble through it. Yeah. Oh, man. I'm glad I wasn't.
If my ex is listening, I apologize.
Yeah. My ex isn't listening. I can almost guarantee it. But I'm glad I never. Yeah, I can't. Jenna can't be like, did you do that to me? No, definitely not.
I know entire about me. I wasn't gaming anymore, so that's how it goes. But so what sparked this episode was a podcast called "This Is Why"
from Global News,
and they did an episode on eSports in Canada, and there was an event for Dota 2, and that's DOTA 2, which is Defense of the Ancients, and there was a tournament being held in Vancouver at the Vancouver Hockey Arena.
Yeah, Rogers Arena.
The Rogers Arena.
Where the Vancouver
Canucks and it's sold out. It's sold out, and basically
like 17,000 people.
Yeah, 17,000 people. Lowest price for the ticket was like $125.
We'll put that podcast from
we'll put the link. The episode was really, really good, and the pot was 25 mil, but to split between I think the 5 guys.
I think that sounds right. Yeah, which is insane.
Yeah. So Dota 2, for those who don't know, it's a free to play multiplayer online battle arena video game.
So free to play, much like your phone games, Candy Crush, whatever you want to call it. There's they make money by getting you to buy upgrades in micro payments, let's call them, under $5 purchases. So it's free to play, but chances are either you're paying a season subscription or to play online for 4 months or something like that. It might be $10.
Right.
It's a whole bunch of smaller payments, unlike the traditional type of gaming, where you're paying $60 upfront for a game or $80 or whatever the number is, and the console or whatnot. It's just try to get you to spend $1 here, $2 here. I mean, I've heard of people with bills of like a couple $100 a month on these free to play games.
Oh, really?
They make money. They almost make more money by giving you the game for free.
Well, it sounds like another episode. But yeah, so basically, people were paying, to watch the game. And so now it raises the question, the podcast was raising the question: are they athletes? And more so, the argument they were making was, will esports eventually surpass hockey? In our Canadian context, surpass hockey and traditional sports in popularity. So let's start from that point, Joel. Do you think esports will surpass traditional sports? Or in your place, you're a hockey guy.
I think if you're looking at esports as a mass category and comparing it to a single sport, it's quite possible. Because I think it would be more appropriate to say esports hockey compared to traditional sports hockey. Because otherwise it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison. I think the better example or the better comparison long term, if I was trying to say what's more popular, would be, let's say, the percentage of kids or youth or whatever category of age bracket you want to use, what percentage play video games or are part of, let's say, esports leagues versus traditional sports leagues. In that question, if I'm redefining it a little, I think you will continue to see like an esports growth, but I don't know that it will necessarily be at the cost of significantly impacting traditional sports.
Okay. Well, I would say now I'm a basketball guy by nature, but I do see esports surpassing it in popularity. Namely because I think passing down of the culture. So for example, I did both. So
Yeah,
I played basketball and I gamed. But a lot of my peers, and like the average age for gamers is 35.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like my peers. Like it's not
kids.
kids.
I think it's older for women.
Yeah.
The average women gamers.
Yeah, but I
older.
mean, it's probably not a lot. I mean, you know what I mean? But
yeah, it's significant, the number of female gamers.
Well, again, that's probably another episode to really look at, like, what kind of life, like, what does that look like? But most of them are like my peers. So from like practical observations with my peers, who did both sports, they hand down the controller before they hand down the baseball bat. One, because it's easier. It's less time consuming. It's easier to just, tell your son and say, "Hey, yo, man, let's walk through Super Mario together.
Yeah.
Let me show you how to beat this bad boy." Right? Let me show you
It's easier to show off to your kid? Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah. let me show you how to get Princess Toadstool. Right? Versus it's easier to do it than to take them outside. Because, like, traditional sports, to learn how to make a layup, you're not learning that in an hour or two. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the second point,
I mean, you learn the concept, but
yeah,
you don't.
yeah, right. And then the second point is that, for safety reasons, you don't want your kid outside, especially unsupervised, like, playing pickup, playing street hockey, pickup basketball in the park, playing baseball while kids are swinging bats. Right. So it's just
Helicopter
safer.
Parenting.
Yeah. Helicopter parenting. Right. So.
Yeah, I mean, just contrasting, I think only reason I made the comment about helicopter parenting is that, like, we are on a trajectory where, letting your kid walk to school, like, versus when I was a kid, really everybody walked to school. And it was, let's say 2 blocks, 3 blocks, 4 blocks of what I'm thinking. How, like, I remember seeing herds of kids on the path that I would take.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just continuing to diminish. And
really?
Yeah. And I would say it's more from a fear base, in my opinion. That's why I referenced helicopter parenting. Because helicopter parenting is all about preventing your kid from experiencing pain. Mm-hmm. Or when they're experiencing pain, you're going to come help. Versus letting them go through it. So in that sense, we've had a conversation around, like, why aren't kids playing sports outside? Mm-hmm. It's like, are their parents letting them? Are they letting them be maybe free enough that they would be outdoors more or outside more?
Right. No, yeah. It's just one of those things where you're like, okay, so it's for safety purposes, it's better to keep the kid in the house. And another reason why I think esports will do well is because it kind of equalizes the playing field when it comes to competition, where you can have women, children, and men competing.
Relatively on a fair.
Yeah,
platform.
and technically, well, from what the why not or this is why podcast, they were saying that the younger you are, the better you are.
Yeah.
And the older you are, you're kind of like,
Can't teach an old dog new tricks.
yeah, well, you know what I mean. So your brain is I can't remember what they were saying, but technically, kids have the capacity to be better gamers than adults. But I think that's attractive. The competition, even I think in my head, I'm like, I got out of gaming just as that was taking off, and I was like, man, even now and then I think about how good could I have been?
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Well,
so,
yeah, I mean, if PS2 was your last console, PS2 had, I can remember like, oh, I can connect this to the internet. Like, there's an Ethernet port, but I never did it.
Yeah.
And then, Xbox, I think it was 360 that I got. It was just because that's Call of Duty,
Yeah.
Xbox. I preferred PS, always did. But when I got Xbox, it was all about online gaming, like all about the competition.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I say I play Call of Duty and NHL, because I literally only play online multiplayer.
Yeah.
I don't do the story in Call of Duty.
Yeah.
I maybe played 5 minutes
Yeah.
most years.
Yeah.
Why would I? I can go beat up someone else on the
Right.
I want the competition.
It's one thing to beat up your brother or your cousins and to beat up your boys, but then you're like, okay, now I gotta step off the block and see who else is the man. But okay, so with that said, let's try to take an economics perspective in regards to foreseeing what the implications will be for the popularity of esports in the future. Like what do you foresee happening?
Well, I guess first thing I want to say is, if people are like, how is this economics? At least for me, and I think you're in agreement, it's along the lines of a Ludwig von Mises approach to economics, which is human action, and the idea, he calls it praxeology. So how is the rise of esports going to impact how people act, or the behaviors of people long term? And so I'm just framing it in that you might not think of that as economics, but we look at economics about incentives, about how people act, what are their preferences, and satisfying their needs. And sometimes it goes beyond just the commercial or commerce side of things for that way of looking at economics. So in that sense, I think the simple thing is, or the simpler question is, what experience did you or me have in team sports that we feel positively shaped us, but is at least less likely or not at all going to occur in esports?
Right. So like I would frame it this way. The popularity of esports minus the traditional sport.
Yeah.
So that's not good. So it's good to have balance. But if you're having a situation where esports and no traditional sports, I think there are life skills and lessons you miss by not participating in traditional sports. And those life skills, I think, ultimately add up to manhood, marriage, family. That's where that's where I see it going. So like, there's just 2 points I have from traditional sports. If you X that out and you just have your kid gaming all day or for the rest of their life, is there's a sex factor, and then there's a through the fire factor.
So I think you need to unpack both of those.
All right.
I was going to say one, but I'm like, nah. They both need to be
okay.
unpacked.
So the sex factor. So the sex factor, there's basically 2 points. Women are attracted to the traditional athlete.
So, how do you know?
Well, I asked, and it's just basic human nature. There's almost like the mating ritual at the sporting event, right? The guy's flexing his muscles, he's showing that he's dominant, and the girls are there and they're associating that with, okay, wow, like he has control of his body, he's strong, he takes charge. Like these are
It's why all the jocks have girlfriends in high school, and the chess club is loners.
right. Well,
that may not impact what long term has, but I think
right, and we don't want to speak in absolute terms, because there's people who play traditional sports who are still
not good with girls,
right? And then there are guys who are gaming who are good with girls. So you know what I mean. But just in general. Yeah, because not everybody's the same, but essentially, that first point, women are attracted to men who are athletic, and I'm saying it in this way because majority of the people who play games are men. So my main concern is just the men not developing, or the boys not developing into men. So women attracted to the traditional athlete, and then the second one is porn, and porn ruins you sexually, and when it comes to dealing with women, and I like just basically isolation and a lot of screen time is not a good recipe.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you put it in with those two qualifiers or characteristics, because it doesn't, I think you could say isolation and screen time could be manifesting in a number of ways. It doesn't have to be gaming. It could be on Facebook.
Yes, right.
It could be just chatting on your WhatsApp with all your friends.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, this weird semi-social, but semi-isolated and that just crazy excessive screen time, I think, is a real catalyst for your point with regards to porn, that if you're already excessive screen time, and now you have an urge, how are you gonna handle it? And with the ease of access that we have in today's world, it's not like back in the day when you had to sneak into the blacked out movie store to there was friction to some extent. Now
right.
the friction to access, I don't even know what the proper terminology for, we're saying porn, but let's call it like digital sex or impersonal sex.
Mm-hmm.
Is so there's no friction.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be taught self-control.
Mm-hmm.
And I think excessive screen time, excessive visual stimulation, isn't it, especially in gaming, usually is a result of a lack of self-control, to be like, wait, I got something else I should have been doing tonight instead of 4 hours of gaming. And going back to when I gave you the example, when I had I would totally fall into that category, that I had excessive screen time. I was sacrificing some other things, even if it was just hanging out with a friend.
Even for me, food. Like food, I would go
skip
without
dinner?
eating. And then of course, it's all about the frozen dinners, right? The Hot Pockets,
the quickest thing to get back to the game.
Right.
It's all, and I think that actually,
by the way, I love you, Tyra, for getting me off of that. Give me the real food.
Stop microwaving.
Yeah, man, I was a microwave and everything,
dude. I don't even own a microwave.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna get slack for that one.
But
toaster oven, baby.
But there's so Dr. Marissa or Zach. So she's the director of computer addiction services and clinical assistant professor at Harvard Medical School, and she said the physiology of video gaming is also a significant interest. After all, the endorphins released in the process of intense video gaming are the same chemicals released in the process of panic or sexual activity. As in now well known, these hormone releases can become addictive. So I'm not saying that
it's like the dopamine stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Like the feedback loop of you give yourself mental stimulation, your body releases dopamine, and you become addicted to that sort of pleasure response. I think it's a little bit of, let's call it general addiction, where you become physically addicted because of the pleasure response system of the body. And there's to break that addiction, you almost need to rewire that. And I mean, we're getting into, not that we're experts in this, but like you're talking about neuroplasticity and a whole bunch of stuff that's really interesting. But I think from the fundamental level, it's good to recognize that the excessive screen time is about how are you becoming addicted to the certain type of pleasure response systems in your body.
Right. And you know, and this is why I brought up the first point about women being attracted to men or males with who are athletic. In that, you know, you're at these events and there's real women there. You're behind closed doors, there's no real women there. Ultimately, as a man, you're gonna have the urge to want female company. Part of being around women is, you know, interacting with them, befriending them, and communicating, and even at some point, you're like, okay, look, there's a girl I'm talking to, pursuing, and when you do have that urge, it's more like, okay, let me call this girl up. And of course, you know, it's only it's male nature to pursue, the hunt. I'll put it that way. The hunt, right? Like you're like, okay, yeah, there's a girl.
There's definitely, and you know, I've heard a pastor say, like, as a married man, I gotta fight the urge, and I think that, you know, just that the urge of temptation, and I've thought about it in light of what you just said. What's that urge? There's a level of, and I know I would say this is true for a lot of men. I don't know if it's true for all men, but I think from my anecdotal experience, you have a desire for affirmation from women. And so as a married man, you have to fight that urge to get it from a woman who's not your wife. Because that, you know, even just talking about it from like getting a girl's number or making friends with a girl, there's the excitement of something new, and this girl doesn't know me. Can I get her to like me? Can I get, you know, just that affirmation never goes away. Yeah. And so that's where I was saying, like, you use the word hunt. I would put it in, you're hunting for that affirmation of your character.
And you know what? Women will always be women, and they will always like men to be men. And like when I think about, like, for example, you know, let's say you're not even at a sporting event. Let's just say you're talking to a female and she's like, okay, so what are you into? And you're like, well, you know, I run track. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means he has a six pack. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're like, oh yeah, track star has a six pack. You know, a hockey player, you know, strong upper body. Yeah. You know what I mean? He can fight. You know what I mean? You know, he can take a punch and fight. You know what I mean? You know, the basketball player. You know, he got a six shoe game. You know, he got a six shoe game. Yeah. The kick getting crazy now. You know what I mean? So you know, it's just one of those things where it's a notch on your belt to say, like, look, even forget, like, you can say, yo, I dance. Well, shoot. She's like, well, that means he's good in bed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like these are the things where, like, physically, you know, women are just, they can make the connection. They're like, but again, if you say, like, you know, well, yeah, I play with my joystick behind closed doors.
No pun intended.
You know what I mean? Like, that's, you know, I don't see too many girls get, you know, excited about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's funny. Like, I think of, like, a really good buddy of mine. And if you're listening, you know who you are when I say this. I can remember driving in a car. I think he was in the front seat. We had my girlfriend and her friend that he was, you know, flirting with, let's say. And I made some comment about being a gamer. He's like, dude, you can't tell girls that. Like, you can't tell girls you're a gamer. And this was like 15 years ago, almost.
Thomas Joel Nikoloff Jr. That's what my wife, because I posted the thing online, you know, asking women, like, you know, who they prefer, like, you know, traditional sports or eSports. And my wife was like, yo, Darnell. And, you know, there wasn't really a response, you know,
a couple.
But well, no, hold on. Guys were liking the comment. No, I didn't ask the guys for their comment. Women were like reluctant. And I was like, man, how come, women aren't saying nothing? And Tara was like, yo, Darnell, most of their men are gamers. Like no girl's gonna, put their man on blast like that. And I was like, oh, frig. I was like, yo, that's a real thing. Oh, hold on. Our producer, yo, you want to jump on this, dog?
What you gotta say?
Yo, get on the mic. Yo, tell them why you mad, son.
I did have one person that messaged me, and actually was like, just laughed and said, "Of course, traditional."
Right, and I know, and I had girls inbox me as well and let me know, like.
Oh, private message. They don't want to put it out.
Yeah, because so it was just one of those points where, women aren't too hyped about that. Even now, like the majority age is 35, and most of my guys are married, and yeah, their wives are like, "Yo, go, put down the controller and pick up a dish."
Yeah. Well, and I think for me in my context, right? I got a newborn. I got a wife. My gaming has dropped even more now that I have a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think it's important for all of us, I'm saying married, like my wife, as well as myself, to have, let's call it personal time. Or, whether that's playing sports, obviously I'm not saying you don't play co-ed sports, but like, it's like I said to my wife, I'm like, you need to, find a night. You book something, you do what you got to do. I'll take care of the kid.
Mm-hmm.
I got my night. It's usually playing hockey. But let's contrast that with, as you were talking about, gaming is in isolation. So if I want to play hockey, I can't play hockey and game, 3 hours a night or on any given night. I don't have 3 hours to game. Now, if I didn't go play hockey regularly, then maybe I'd have that time. And so I think for most women or married people, if your spouse is gaming, that's time that they're sacrificing with you to do that. Now, we all need leisure. We all need downtime. There is, I think, need to do that on, have some time to yourself. But if it's excessive, that means what are you sacrificing? So, I can understand why women would have a hesitation towards it. But at the same time, if it's a reasonable amount of time and, you're not waking up on Saturday morning and playing till noon and being like, yeah, take care of the kid. I got this controller to play with.
Yeah.
And so
it's not a good look.
No, like what responsibilities are you sacrificing to do that? And this is where I think, we haven't touched on it yet, but I want to come back to the value of team sport.
Right. Well, no. Well, let's segue to that now. So that's my second point, through the fire. So the first point I wanted to touch on was, in traditional sports, there's a likelihood you'll experience embarrassment, not adversity, but embarrassment. But then in the embarrassment, you show the adversity, but the embarrassment's key because being laughed at. And how you respond. So, like, for example, people are like, what do you mean be embarrassed? Okay, so I'm a hooper. So I'm not sure if you follow Ball is Life, but there's plenty of highlights. I mean, I'll put in, I'm going to put it in the show notes. I'm going to put a couple links of guys getting humiliated.
Like Carter dunking over the 7-footer?
No, worse, getting dropped. That's the worst thing. Getting crossed ankles, falling over, and then guys hitting shots or whatever the case may be. I remember there's one clip. This one dude was dribbling, and he took the shirt off of his defender while dribbling.
It was and one, wasn't it?
No, this was just a street ball game, and the guy just embarrassed him. And it was, and then and of course, black people, running across the court. They're running, like the game literally has to stop, and people are running across the court, and everybody has their phones out. Like, that's embarrassing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I've been dunked on.
Yeah,
shout out to Sonny Brown. Project Hulk caught a backdoor alley-oop on me in grade 9. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know he had hops like that. He caught a backdoor alley-oop, dunked on me. I wasn't allowed to go in the cafeteria the rest of the year. That's true. That was it. I ate my lunch in the hallway. Like, I couldn't go back in that joint.
Oh, man.
You see what I'm saying? But I got over it. I learned to laugh at myself, and I got over it. No suicidal thoughts, no depression. Just go through the fire. But yeah.
Well, yeah, I think your point through the fire is a good statement, because let's contrast that with gaming.
Mm-hmm.
I'll use an example like, oh, I'm playing Call of Duty. I go 0-16 on a map. I get, my team is pissed because I'm the one that caused us to lose.
Mm-hmm.
What do? Quit the lobby, join a new one. No one knows what's good, right? Like I can run from those things. I mean, we can list a whole bunch of scenarios, not just humiliation, but like, okay, hockey context. I try to ring a puck around the boards as a defenseman, accidentally snipe it in my own net. You can't, run off the ice and go join another rink.
Right.
You got to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, your teammates chewing you out.
And you got to own it. Like, yo, I messed up. I ate it. Like, it's on me. I got to be better. And I think it's an interesting, like, again, through the fire. Like, you're going to push through those uncomfortable, annoying, painful, whatever it is, scenario moments. Yeah. Whereas in gaming, it's like, I mean, we chirp people about rage quitting all the time. What does that mean? Middle of the game, boom, they just shut off their system because they're so rattled.
Right.
And so I think that to some extent, those behaviors within gaming where, it would be a little different if it was team sports gaming where you don't have the ability to run, where, and this is where I think there's some hope for these bad things in gaming as our data world changes. As I was listening to Joe Rogan talking with Elon Musk, and Elon Musk was the podcast just came out. Elon Musk was talking about the stream of data right now is actually really bottlenecked in that, we share a picture and it shows a lot, but if you contrast that with the idea of live streaming, there's such a drastic difference. And the speed at which we can live stream is not that good in contrast to, like, let's say if I was bringing that into the gaming world, if I was now part of an eSports team, I have to jump on half hour before so we can sit in a lobby and game plan our basketball game. And then I only control one character. And I got 5, let's say basketball. Yeah. I got 5 other people I'm playing with. Some of these things that are, let's call them bad habits within gaming, that doesn't allow you to go through the fire. I think in the long term, as AI grows, as our data world grows, maybe those things will be mitigated. But in today's world, these are problems,
right? Because
you don't go through the fire,
right? Right, and then So the next point I have is being the weakest link in the chain and going through that. So like being like, so in esports, you're not the weakest link. Like, you're still relatively good. You're still a relatively respectable player. You're not. Well, I mean, you're not yourself. So from the point I'm making is that, have you been the worst player on a team?
Me?
Yeah. Well, like for example, I played lacrosse, and I was not the best player, and it was a terrible experience because I didn't know the game. So it's a very physical game for you guys who don't know.
Yeah.
And that was rough, but my coach was very good, and he I was like the only black kid playing probably in the whole league at the time. Here I am, breaking barriers, Jackie Robinson. But my coach was very supportive, and he was always encouraging me and letting me know I was part of the team, even though I was taking a beating and I was just terrible. So these are the things, learning to follow through on your commitments.
Exactly. I was saying about responsibilities, right? Like, you made a commitment to your parents that, oh, you're going to pay for this. I have a responsibility to play,
to finish,
right? Whatever the number. Let's say they paid $500. Maybe it wasn't that much, but like, you paid $500 for you to be on the team, and 4 games or like 10% into the season, they got $50 worth of their money in terms of what they paid for, and you're like, I want to quit. It's like, well, no, you made a commitment. Yeah. We didn't pay for you to sit at home, and I think there's value in that. Now, obviously, if your parents are riding you because you suck, that's we're not at all saying that all the scenarios are good, because your parents are going to play a role. But it sounds like it was a positive experience for you looking back. Now,
Right.
during it, there's pain, there's
Yeah.
anguish, there's like embarrassment.
Right.
I can think of, I made one of the intramural like soccer teams in like elementary school. I never played soccer. I was just, athletic.
Mhm.
And, first game in the tournament that we were in, just didn't know the fundamentals. And like as a defender, I should have done X and I didn't.
Mhm.
And we got scored on. Now, was I the only one who made a mistake on the play? No. But guess what? I was on the bench.
Right.
And so, yeah, sitting there.
Doghouse.
Doghouse.
Oh boy.
For I didn't play till the tournament was, last half of the last game.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, yeah, I deserve
You
that.
can't just quit and join another team.
No.
You gotta ride out the doghouse.
And celebrate if your team wins the
Yeah.
championship with you on the
Bruh.
bench.
Right.
And go, okay, what am I learning here?
But see, Joel, this is what connects. This is why I'm making the connection to manhood and having a family and being able to go to work
Absolutely.
and feel like I'm not contributing anything here. I'm not being valued here. But the big picture is, I have a team at home that I got to support. And learning what that's like to put, and the point is the physical toll of sports. There's a physical toll that your body takes even when you go to work, and making that connection to
stress.
follow. Yeah. As opposed to just turning off the game, joining another game, or
so pleasure driven.
or your thumb's hurting you. You know what I mean? So that's why I would make the connection. Now, my last point is physical altercations.
Mm-hmm.
Learning how to deal with that. So in sports, there's controlled physical altercations, and then there's the uncontrolled or unsupervised altercation. So what I mean by that is, so again, part of growth is from boy to a man is dealing with people and confrontation. So for pickup basketball, when you're in organized games, the refs make the calls. They make the foul calls. But in pickup, you make your own calls. So if it's game point, you know what I mean? And, you call a foul and the guy says, let's say it's me. I'm 5'10", and then there's a guy who's 6'8", my cousin. And no, it's not my cousin, but, 6'8", you know what I mean? And I call a foul, like he clearly nails me. And he says, well, no, he doesn't honor that. Because, you don't have to honor
you can
a person's call. Well, now me and him have to come face to face.
And reach a conclusion.
Yeah, now, because it's unsupervised, this can escalate. This can escalate to, punches being thrown. But you have to come to the point where, like, okay, look, man, I'm not going to let you intimidate me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you got to learn how to, I guess, in a sense, flex.
Stand up for yourself.
Yeah. And let them know, like, look, man, you fouled me. They're like, oh, they'll shoot for it. Like, hell no, we ain't shooting for nothing. Give me the damn ball. Like, we're not going through this. You clearly karate chopped me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's that instance of learning how to deal with altercations and confrontation and not being passive. Even like when you go to play pickup, like my first night at pickup, I didn't play. Well, why didn't I play? Because I thought someone would come beside me and put their arm around me and say, hey, would you like to play? So the whole night, I didn't know that you had to call your run. So when you go to a gym, it doesn't matter if you don't know anybody. You have to say, yo, I got next. And you got to say it loud enough so everybody in the gym hears you. And if somebody says, well, no, I got next. And you're like, okay, well,
I'm after that.
Yeah, I'm after that. You know what I mean? Until the point where you call your run and now you're like, okay, do you have 4? Okay, yo, you're on my team. No, you're not on my team. Da-da-da-da-da. But you learn through the fire to speak up for yourself and not be passive.
Well, and I think, my mind also goes to this idea of meritocracy, right? Where they're talking about taking scoring out of kids' soccer. And for 4-year-olds, like, okay, whatever, I don't care. But it's like when you got 7, 8-year-olds, like, I know a guy, he's like, my kid comes home and he knows the score every game. Like, right. I don't care that you're keeping score or not. They know they pumped that other team or if they won or lost because everybody's keeping score. You're just not recording it for the league.
Right.
And I think, meritocracy is, there's some, let's say, valid arguments for making it not only about who's the best. And absolutely, right? Because you got to learn how to lose. You got to learn how to handle situations that you don't like.
Yeah.
Preparation for failure. Because,
Right.
and this is why I'm bringing it back to meritocracy, because the fundamentals of meritocracy to me is we are all going to have successes and failures in life. And if you don't have meritocracy as part of sports, you're actually pulling away the opportunity to learn how to deal with winning and losing, or to how to deal with successes and failures, right? What's worse than a sore loser is a sore winner. Like when you got to deal with the other team who's being jerks and winning, like you get it when they're losing,
Right.
like, okay, they're getting a little rowdy. Guys, let's not pump them. You know, in hockey, we're up 3-4 goals. There's 2 minutes left. No need to selly when you score a goal. Whereas the other team, you know, if you keep rubbing it in their face, you're going to expect them to get angry. And now someone does something they shouldn't be doing, like cross-checking a guy across the head.
Yeah.
And so there's an aspect of respect for people on the other side as well, that like in gaming, like what's the guy going to do? Dox you? Like,
Right,
you know, come on. Like at the end of the day, you can be as ruthless as you want with no consequences.
Right. No, actually, that's a good point. Yeah, because if you're playing like NBA Live or 2K and you're getting blown out by 60, and you know what I mean, or one of those things like I don't know if you have this in hockey, but in the NBA, like if the game's over and you're up by a lot, and you score the basket as opposed to dribbling it out. Oh man, guys get offended. Like this isn't even a ref thing. This is like a culture thing.
Yeah.
And it, it is what it is. But you see those guys saying, "Wait, hold on, like that's classless, bro." Like, you're up 15, you're up 10. The game's over, but you're here trying to add another basket to it. It's done. Like, let it go. Yeah.
Self-policing, right? Like, that's the thing. Going back to it, you're accountable to your team. Whereas, like, so much of the gaming is in isolation, especially. I mean, you can now, they have like integrated team sports, right? So you can play basketball, stick a character or stick a position, and then everybody else.
Yeah.
But I would say, I know for me, I almost always preferred to play NHL by myself. I don't have anyone to hold me accountable to. And I think that's a greater life issue where isolation is problematic. So, I mean, I think we've hashed out really the big differences between these two. Yeah. Is there what's your 2 cents you want to leave the audience with? I'm just like more so concerned about men as a whole, because the scripture holds men to a high esteem, and that they have a responsibility to their families and ultimately to society. So like, the sex factor, and not learning how to engage females properly hurts men in the long run when you're not able to approach women when you're older, even for the sake of starting a family. And if you haven't been through the fire, how can you even maintain that family, right? By learning those intangible skills from traditional sports. So you can't undervalue traditional sports, and nothing's wrong with eSports, just don't overdo it. Yeah, and I mean, I would say I'm in agreement with you mostly. I would take it to a social level beyond just the relational between male and female, like relational in general, right? How are you going to speak up to your boss? All these just general communication skills in, let's call it, uncomfortable scenarios. I think sports do a really good job of helping you just experience uncomfortable scenarios and learn. Whereas isolation, I think, is the really big key to where gaming or esports can be detrimental. And then add the excessive screen time. The two of those things together are
and the male urge to want female company.
Well, I would say that is a scenario where those two things are problematic.
Right.
I think there's a lot of scenarios where excessive screen time and living in isolation are problematic.
Right.
And so for me, that's where I would say I was taking it to a slightly more generic view, just that isolation is problematic. And I mean, when we did our population or demographic episode for Canada Stats, we were talking about we're more isolated while feeling more connected, was one of our comments. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
That's my 2 cents.
Hit us up if you think we're a bunch of dummies with regards to gaming. Give us your feedback. Tell us what you think. Hit us on
ladies. Let us know what you think. It's all right.
Inbox us if necessary. It doesn't have to be public. We won't broadcast who you are, what you said, but we appreciate the feedback. So at 6 Cents Report, both Twitter, Facebook, and then email us sixcentsreport@gmail.com and
finish him.
But you heard me? Does that make sense?
Madden and Mitchell Media.